Mhm. Okay, we are at 2 o'clock. Okay, thank you. All right, the meeting is called to order. Welcome, everyone, to our Parks and Commons May 6th meeting. I want to start with our roll call for the audio.
Adam Altston, Dan Wright,
Meg Simons.
George Giroux,
Ron Simons.
John Krable.
And is Dan Sterling on?
He is not on yet.
Okay, he is planning to join us on Zoom. Okay. All right, and then for mostly my benefit as facilitator, just a call for preparedness with our commissioners that we've had a chance to look at the agenda and the attachments. So everybody's been able to do that.
Yes.
Great. All right, on our announcements, we have 3 announcements. The first is our Sharon Designs Master Plan group. We have our last public input meeting on May 14th at 5 o'clock in the Commons. Second announcement is we have a wildlife emergency preparedness meeting also in the Commons on May 19th. From 3 to 5:30 will be the Commons discussion as an emergency shelter with the Red Cross sponsorship. So Ron and I will be out of town as commissioners, but if any of our other commissioners can attend that meeting on May 19th, I think it would be great since it is in the Commons purview, et cetera, to be a part of that.
Can you say what that is again?
It's a wildfire.
Oh, I was confused. I was
Wildlife preservation.
Wildfire, I'm so sorry.
Bear.
Wildfire.
Go save the wildlife.
Halfway to Klein, aren't you?
All right, we'll make sure that's correct in the minutes. Thank you. Oh, and then at 5:30, there'll be a wildfire tabletop discussion.
So when does the first part start?
It starts at 3 o'clock. Yeah. And, you know, on that note, I was asked by a resident upriver, where I work at Riverwind Farm, 9 miles up, and she was asking if this information is being made available upriver, if they're included, and she strongly feels we should have clear communication with the upriver residents. So I'm just putting that out there. Yeah. And then the last announcement is that we do have a group here in Yachats that has formed a Yachats as a Bird City. And that's the handout that I gave you to read, our commissioners. And so if there's anyone on the Parks and Commons Commission that would be interested in being a part of that group, they can contact Jim Welch. Okay. All right. So with, yeah.
I just wanted to add on the master plan advisory. Correct, May 14th is the last public meeting, and before this commission, they'll be here on June 4th.
Oh, at our meeting?
Yes.
Oh, great to know. Okay. Okay, so that takes us in our agenda onto the public comment. And so, Jim, if you'd like to take it away with the Bird City.
I'd like to read the first sentence of our mission statement. Our village is a place where natural resources are valued and protected. That's why I'm here. Talk about a designation called Bird City. And this is a recognition given to communities that demonstrate such strong commitment to wildlife and protection of our natural resources. And it's a national, actually it encompasses the Americas, both the South America and North America. Currently, there's several hundred communities that have been designated this designation. Oregon is the 13th state to initiate one of these programs. And there is an application process for certification. And what happened was I got together got a group organized with Catherine here, as well as Nicole from the chamber, and we also had Mike Guerrero join us. We're trying to put together essentially a steering committee as part of this effort. And we had the meeting, met with the director of the Bird City, Oregon, and she gave us went through the process of designation. And out of that meeting, we came to the conclusion that this would be a good thing for us to do here in Yachats. And the things that really stood out from that was, of course, recognition of all the hard work we've done here. I mean, when you think about it, when you have Swifty or View the Future, the conservation of the trail maintenance is huge. You know, weeds are a big threat to wildlife, for example. Light pollution is a threat to migrating birds. So we've cats that are not outdoor cats are a threat. There's so many things that we can do here, or we've already done. For example, we have a light night lights, outdoor light standards that in our, but some of those standards need to be improved upon. So we came to the conclusion that there was a lot that we could do here to enhance what we've already done. And the benefits, of course, are going to primarily to tourism, which we know is nature is our foundation for our mission statement, and is the foundation for our tourism economy. And along the way, I came up with some interesting statistics. 1 out of $8 spent in Oregon for outdoor recreation was spent in Lincoln County. So that's $2 billion because it's a $16 billion economy every year spent in Oregon for outdoor recreation. $2 billion was spent in Lincoln County. And then if you also pull out the bird watching and nature viewing piece of it, in Oregon, that's $2 billion alone a year in economic vitality for our communities. So we would, if we do get certified, we would be a bird city signage we would have on 101. And interestingly enough, we would be the first community along the whole Pacific Flyway, coastal flyway, to get that designation. And which is, I think, would be a marvelous coup for us here. And again, a way of congratulating ourselves on what work that we have done. So I started, as a result of the meeting I discussed earlier, we have agreed to come up with a committee. This would meet quarterly. We would bring together all the stakeholders and, most importantly, inventory our existing actions, enhance and develop programs, conduct an annual review. And as I was thinking about it, this committee would then report to your committee, to your commission, and that so that our actions could be included in the annual city report. I took a hard look at what to name this group, and I came up with Yahoo! Kind of a cow call. In any case, if Catherine and I are here, if you have any questions, we'd love to answer those. And Catherine will discuss the process, meaning we're going to need a resolution approved by the city in support of this initiative.
Okay.
Go ahead, Catherine.
He's
I didn't
putting me
want to
on the
take-
spot.
Yeah.
So wanting your advice in terms of, I'll just go see him next time.
Are you-
He can't vote very easily. He can't vote easily. Stay there.
Oh,
Stay
okay,
there.
okay.
If this commission feels like they have enough knowledge from what was sent previously and today, and if you felt like you could vote on this so it could go to city council sooner, or if we need to just make the request to have it on the agenda for your next meeting and then go, so that would be 1 month delay going on, but whatever it needs to be.
So just to clarify what you're specifically asking of the commission, you're giving us information, but you're also asking us to have a commissioner be a part of the group is what I had heard from you. Or like,
There's several things. One is we'd like to be integrated into your umbrella in a sense.
They want to be
Okay.
endorsed. is
you
what
want to
I
be
hear.
endorsed by
We
the.
want to be endorsed so that it goes up to the council level.
And then at the council, there'll need to be a resolution and vote for that,
Okay.
finalized.
Okay, thank you.
So, in your research of this, did you find 1 or 2 or 3 things that Yahats needs to do to be eligible?
Well, I think that we really haven't done that. That's gonna be the next phase. But there certainly was some discussion about lighting. There's some lighting issues in town that we could address. In particular, city lights that are very bright and don't shine down. So,
But I think
Yeah.
when we went with the head of the organization, we went through the criteria, George, of what allows you to be certified. And I think we were all pretty amazed, like, yeah, Yahas does it. So it was like,
Hmm,
I think we're pretty much shoe in.
Yeah.
Yes, there's areas to improve on, but in terms of their criteria, I think we got it.
yeah, there's no question that this, in fact, we have a bee pollinator
right.
here. I mean, we have so many things that are important. Yeah, got it.
This goes hand in hand with that question, so you may not be able to answer it yet, but do you envision any cost to the city at this point?
Well, there's $100 fee.
All right, that's negligible.
With that $100 fee, there was a return of $1,000 worth of assistance and support to get it rolling.
And
And keep in mind that Nicole, the chamber, is really behind this and wished she could be here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we could ask the chamber for some money as well. If we needed it.
Yeah,
But we would bring, once we do our inventory of ideas, we would bring those to you guys to get a feedback on.
okay.
Feedback.
Bobby, did you?
I was just gonna continue, who would pay for the sign on 101 to announce that we are, was that come from
I
the
think
Bird
it was
City
one
USA?
sign included,
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
one
Yeah.
sign.
so we want one on both ends of town,
so one would be on our
So
dime,
there would
okay,
be- So we would provide some budgetary numbers once we get going.
okay.
So, John, you have a question?
Are there any other bird cities in the state?
Well, we would be the first, except that Eugene started, was really the core of the core Audubon chapter that got this going. So I deferred to them, said, okay, you can be first.
So Eugene's the only other one that's.
Well,
We just happen to have a very easy situation,
right.
put together an application. And
Well,
so we're not gonna push Eugene aside down.
Catherine said there was a list of criteria for the
Yes.
city to qualify. Can we get that list?
No, I'm happy to share it to you.
So what I'm hearing, just to summarize, is that we have enough interest in our commission with questions to put this on our May agenda.
This is.
Our April, June. I'm struggling with words today. I must be kind of floating away somewhere, but, so to put this on our June agenda so that we can give this the questions and the data collection that it needs. I don't feel like we're prepared to make a vote now. Do you all agree?
Agreed.
Okay,
At that time, I can bring back the application,
that would be helpful.
meaning I will have it ready to go.
Okay,
And perhaps furnish us with. some
I
kind
have,
of-
I have them here.
yeah. Okay, well, that's great.
That's the, what Dan was referring to.
Right,
Well,
So you come back, I'd like to hear more about, you mentioned your committee and what that entails for future things when you come back.
I think that's something we should discuss, because I'm just sort of starting, this is a committee that sort of is required to get the bird city application.
And that it's not a requirement to continue on. We don't need to talk about
Yeah.
I just want that to be included in part of the
Yes,
conversation.
it is a requirement for the committee to continue to go forward.
okay.
Annual review.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And we had one other public comment, Catherine.
Totally separate.
And
Totally
one of the
separate.
Wild things is this weekend.
Yeah, that should be an announcement, actually.
Yes, it should be. I think I saw it on the reader board and then just forgot to get it into my notes. So yeah, thank you.
All right, Catherine Witten Carey, resident of Yahats, live on East Third Street. And I just wanted to bring up a few items for your consideration. Actually, there's three. The Whale Park is the first one. As a part of the Trails team, I and many others have spent considerable hours, weeks, months trying to maintain this park. It's a beautiful spot. As it sits across from the landmark property, which now belongs to the city, it will forever have the view of the Yahats estuary and the ocean. However, in my opinion and the opinion of others, it seems to need more attention and renovation. A joint effort between Parks and Commons Commission and the Trails team. Please consider major weed removal, ridding plants of invading other plants, and enhancing the bedding. Please consider rehabilitating the wall structures so that the plants do not grow through it and the mortar is not crumbling. Please consider installing a park bench at a diagonal facing the ocean between the beautiful large tree and the whale tail. So this far enough away from the spout that you can consider. And then it's my understanding that the commission has kind of divvied up parks in terms of kind of monitoring a park. And I was wondering who that might be for the whale park. And then totally separate item, a memorial of some kind to be put up on the 804 Trail State Park corner for Sean, who died at sea trying to save two youngsters last year. Everyone spoke about such a thing at first, and then it was dropped. I believe this commission is dealing with memorial benches, rocks, and so forth, and that's why I'm bringing it here.
Okay.
Lastly, and this item might be a joint item between this commission due to the 804 Trail and the Public Works Streets Commission. As a safety concern, it would be wonderful to see boulders of some size, like large, at the end of the road or cliff's edge at Ocean View Drive and Pontiac Streets. This T-junction over a cliff to the ocean is very dangerous without a visible physical barrier, especially at night or in the rain for those unfamiliar with the area.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was
Very well done. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
beautiful. Okay. All right, well, we'll all give those some attention and be reporting back. Okay, next would be our last meeting minutes, and we need to get those approved.
I have a comment on that. On guess it's the second page. Down there where it says discuss and reimagine PCC guidelines. And a couple times it talks about the committee, but that should actually say commission.
That's been changed.
Yeah,
I got the notes on that.
yeah, I had sent those in,
Okay.
and so
The
it's.
editor and you had found that.
Yes,
already?
yes.
Well, that was my only comment.
Okay, George.
Also on the second page, the last section.
Last page?
Yep. Last section, section 8, says that that the Civic Master Plan Advisory Group is a committee focused on developing a comprehensive plan for the community's future. It's actually not for the community's future, it's for the civic campus. Maybe that's minutia, but that's. I call it.
Sure.
More specific.
Yeah.
Noted. Make that change.
Any other comments or questions?
Same sentence, calling it a committee, I don't know if it's technically a committee or not, the advisory group.
It's a work group, isn't it?
Work group.
Yeah.
So that should, yeah, it should probably be changed.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
great. Thank you so much, Kimmy.
Meg, just a little intrusion, I just got a note, Dan Sterling. He says he's been trying, but he's unable to get on the Zoom. Keeps getting an error message, so looks like he's not gonna make it.
Darn.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah,
He
okay.
said it's either my equipment or operator errors.
Okay,
So no damage.
okay.
You're on
Thank
your
you.
own, Meg.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Okay, then let's continue along into our report section of our meeting. This is our opportunity for any questions and comments. First is our Commons Data Report. Any questions or comments on that? All right, our next report is our narrative report that Rosa has put together again on the Commons. Do you have any highlights, Rosa?
I do.
Okay.
Highlights, and then I also just wanted to check in. So as far as highlights, I revised the common policy like I just stated. And then I also have been going through the commons and really trying to clean it up and organize the building. I already cleaned up the multi-purpose room storage area, the stage, the kitchen, and room 7. And I'll be adding layouts to each of the rooms, plus I might be trying to print out photos of what it looks like in each cupboard so that everybody puts everything back properly. Because that will set the foundation of what we're trying to build from. Let's see here. All of the user groups now have proper equipment storage and protocols. Lorraine repapered and organized the bulletin boards, and that's been monitored regularly now by Lorraine. I just submitted a budget proposal for the Commons to Bobby, and that's to get all of the missing items that we have for the Commons. Just running events, there have been just a few problematic areas. We don't have enough dishware and cooking supplies, cleaning supplies to run a proper event like banquets, weddings and such. We are also putting up the basketball hoops, and the balls that we have are all flat and old. So it would be nice to get some new basketballs as well. The whole idea behind getting new ideas or new items for the Commons is I'll be discussing with you guys the next meeting. I'm going to be going over sales and promotions and trying to put rental packages together, but we kind of need everything working at the Commons before I can do so. Let's see here. The sound engineer came out to inspect the stage to see if the stage was structurally sound to mount new speakers. I think I heard that.
I haven't heard the results.
Okay. And then Aero Heating came out for service and maintenance. So our heating systems are all good to go. Public Works just serviced the grease trap and repaired the playground treehouse. And we're in the middle of scheduling AED CPR first aid training for City Hall staff, library staff and volunteers, farmers market and YFAP staff. I'm also going to be doing ADA mapping for the Commons and City Hall so that if there's ever an emergency, people know where those are all located. And we ordered life back choking devices as well, because if you've ever given anybody the Heimlich maneuver, you can see how that can be problematic and sometimes it's not effective. The life back actually will pull whatever is lodged in the throat or dislodge whatever is in the throat. So that it's very handy. And then that brings me back to the common policy. Did everybody review that? Is there any comments, any feedback? The policy itself,
I didn't have any.
Yeah.
okay,
Well done.
no,
Well done.
yes.
I want to hit on one question. These life back choking devices, will staff be trained in those? Or are they just so darn easy that no one has to be trained in them?
Yes, so when we have the training that I'm scheduling with the fire department, we are going to be going over the AED and the life back choking devices.
Excellent.
And then I will be also communicating with Will and Wendy at the fire department to see if it is possible to set up a community training that they can come to the commons. That would be a separate training as well. So if anybody else wants to get trained, can be an option.
Okay,
Great,
thank you.
great.
Go ahead, George. All right, the understage storage, is that process completely finished?
That is being worked on right now, and I was gonna leave that to George to give an update. I have it on here, but I just.
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't
in
want
the
to-
work.
Yeah, but it didn't, what I saw in the work group was what was proposed to be done. But that was like in March, and so I was wondering if it's actually been done.
Okay,
So getting back to Rose's, I just wanted to ask in the data report, there's a lot of referencing to resiliency funds. We don't have that yet, right? Okay.
No, not
Okay,
yet.
I just, and we're gonna apply for that again.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Great. And thank you for all the organizing.
yeah.
It's looking great and it's coming
Yeah.
together very nicely. And I guess we'll
Yeah.
handle the work group.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And then Bobby, did you have, actually before that, Adam, I saw your hand go up.
I didn't realize we were reapplying for a resiliency grant.
That's gonna be later on down the road as part of the 25-year master plan.
Okay,
But yeah, we have to definitely prepare for it.
okay.
Yeah, make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row.
And lastly, is the subwoofer part of the speaker reimagining? Is that gonna come up out from underneath the stage?
I know that's gonna be with the sound engineer, where he's gonna be looking at all of that to see if that needs to be relocated or if it can be relocated and what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think I sent you guys a note or at least I said something that next time you're down there, you can just pull it out.
You did?
Yeah. Yeah, because it'll just get refigured with that sound
Okay.
project. And it could be, you can do all of the designing you need to do with that being out.
Okay, excellent.
And then while we're on the comments, lastly, I wanted to give you an opportunity, Bobby, if there was any comments on the ADA bathroom, any updates.
Yeah, and that's part of the Greater Commons Master Plan that's being
Sure.
on currently. And I believe it will be identified as one of the first priorities to be done as soon as that plan is approved by city council, which will be in July. There is funding set aside in this next fiscal year budget, as well as a grant that is required to be spent within this next year, or within this year. So I do want to have a work group that comes together for that to support Rosa in the process of that. I think those kind of conversations could start preliminarily now. And then with integration of the Commons Master Plan's final recommendations. And so that we can start the process shortly after the master plan is adopted by city council.
Great.
That's
Great,
the plan for
yeah.
that. So if anybody's interested in working with Rosa on that, they're welcome to connect with her and form a little work group.
It seems like putting the cart before the horse, if you start trying to design the bathroom before we've got the master plan in place.
Well, I think some conversations could take place.
But I mean, the
like,
layout, even
what kind of
location
style?
may be different.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good idea
Well, I guess if there is, I don't know it.
Well, you will.
It's a good general idea of where it's gonna go, where conversations could start. Not that there will be any finalizing at all until after we have the plans.
Okay.
It won't surprise you. I'm interested.
Okay. All right, did you have, yeah, okay. All right, and then we have our work group. Yeah,
The work group report too.
yeah, let's just flow
and
right
then,
in, yeah.
Part of one of the different conversations or things that have happened, it was reported to me that, the bench at Keith Park was, unsafe, and we did have our city staff, take a look at that, and it
Yes.
really was very dangerous, and so it
Yes.
was removed, and we have, contracted with a local contractor who's going to, come up with some designs. That bench was very artistic and creative and special for the people, so we are requesting it to be a unique and interesting piece rather than just a bench that we order from a supply company.
Mhm.
So we'll bring that to you guys when it comes to, when it is ready.
Perfect, great follow-up, okay. Anything else on, yeah, Bob?
Two things.
Yeah.
John asked me on Saturday not to get the point. State Parks is having a fabricator prepare them in. That's why.
Good to know. Thanks.
Was sharing earlier today about moving out. He doesn't profit part.
Great.
In terms of budgeting and getting things work, so that public knows what she's anticipating, and also knows what she's accomplished.
So you did have the meeting with her?
Yes.
Great.
Okay. All right, any other questions on our work group reports?
I can answer Ron's question. The understage thing is moving slowly. Paul and I are doing it as we get time. So
Okay.
right now, our focus is getting the hinges installed. And we've got the mortising on the door side. And Thursday, we'll be working on the mortising on the frame side.
Are you guys doing that in both shop?
We haven't, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, we'll put trim on the doors, and after that, we'll start tackling the carts themselves.
If that, is a design kind of already determined on that?
It is.
Great, okay. I appreciate that.
All right.
Thanks.
Great,
Oh, and
yeah,
Rose, I just wanted to go back with the things you requested for the event center. That's not a CIP request. Okay,
No, it's definitely well under 5,000.
perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
and then our last report is our parks maintenance report.
I'm sorry, I did have one more thing. I
All right.
apologize, but there's nothing in the report from the landmark property work group.
True.
And there is a work group, but we didn't get anything about it. So I just wondered if there's anything to tell.
There's nothing to tell.
Probably not.
Okay, that's all.
No news is no news.
That's exactly right.
Okay, all right, Dan,
Well, I'd like to know who's on that work group, just for communication's sake.
the landmark work
Yeah.
group?
So if I have a question, I can say, hey, what about?
Yeah, so far we have, myself, Rick McClung, Lauren, Bob, and, Joanne. And you are, and yeah, we were talking about it as the council representative,
Okay,
but it's at standstill right now.
all right, we're, Adam.
A question on the Civic Campus Advisory Work Group. I wasn't able to make the last meeting last month, and I was wondering if you could give a quick update on how that went.
Sure. And Bobby, feel free to jump in. The plans have been narrowed down and sort of, I guess, divided by stages, perhaps. So we're planning around YFAP staying in the building.
Mhm.
That's what's showing in all the plans, and I think maybe the rest left unsaid. Until the public meeting.
Okay.
Fair enough, yeah.
And just to clarify something about the June 4th meeting, and Sharon Design is gonna come here.
For our approval.
That will be after the last public meeting, and so they're gonna give us a sort of semi-finalized plan to look at.
I think that is a pretty good summary of it, and
Good,
they're looking for our approval or recommendation to the city.
great.
Great.
That's gonna be good timing.
Appreciate that update, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
The advisory group, will meet again June second, right? No, June second, when they come here, June fourth.
So June fourth is when they come here.
Okay, so then we meet again after the public hearing, or not hearing, but public event on the 14th, and then we meet again as the advisory group, I think, June second.
Yeah,
Right
Yeah,
before
June
our.
Right before your guys'.
Great.
I think that's it, yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
What time is that? Bobby, do you know?
I think it was 1 o'clock.
all right, then moving on in our agenda to our new business. First up is a beginning of a discussion on the scope of the signage project for the Wetlands Boardwalk. So is everyone clear when we reference the Wetlands Boardwalk where we're talking about? I think we're all clear. Okay. So as I understand this is a city council goal, and they have asked our commission to decide on the content of the signs to be placed there to upgrade that public information aspect of the park. And then our city manager will decide design, style, et cetera, of the signs and then place the order. So our job is pretty straightforward. We have signs to decide what we need a sign for. So we have plant identification. We have directional wayfinding signs that we'll want to consider. And then we have the wetlands ecology information /history. Yeah, I mean, like culture, all of those things as you see on the agenda here.
So that brings a question. Isn't there already a sign as you enter the wetlands that has some
Yeah.
of that information on it?
Yeah, I was just gonna speak to that I think as I see it, we would want to look at assessing what's already there, what's already been done, deciding where the gaps are, and
He's here.
welcome, Dan.
In the atmosphere.
Yeah. He's happy
No
today.
wonder we couldn't connect. It's up in the moon.
Finds out.
Well,
Look
if
at me.
you're weightless, then you're probably not having any issues.
Thanks.
So, yeah, look what's already been done and then go from there. So one idea that had been brought out as we get into the discussion here is to form a subcommittee of us commissioners to organize this and take it away. This should be a pretty straightforward project as I understand it. And the goal hopefully would be to finish it in like early summer, a couple of months from now. So with that said, I just kind of want to open up to what you all are thinking.
So the first question that comes to mind for me is on plant identification.
Okay,
And I mean, we have a variety of people of different levels and knowledge.
right.
And, does the average person that's gonna walk through the wetlands want to know the genealogy, or that's not the right word, the genus and species of all the plants? Or do they want to know that it's a slippery elm, or?
Sure, so what level of
What
detail?
level of specificity are we gonna put on plant identification?
Okay,
So I think that's something we should.
I agree. Okay, what
You
other
have-
questions or,
These guys have fun.
yeah,
Well, I was gonna suggest that we discuss the target audience before we try to discuss design, which leads right into what
yeah, and that
What I was
was one of my comments earlier. So yeah, I agree.
So another question is, do we have any idea who uses that wetlands? I mean, how often are tourists in there versus local? How often are school children in there versus elderly? Do we have any idea of that at all?
And maybe that will change when we upgrade it.
Mhm.
I walk through it virtually daily, if not multiple times a day.
You don't count.
No, but I run
He
into
knows.
both residents and tourists almost, I don't want to say 50-50, but a lot of tourists are like stunned to find it there. Like, oh, this is great. We didn't know this was here. And there's a sign on Ocean View Drive that points them there. And that's how they discover it in many cases.
Yeah.
But a fair amount of tourists do use it. I don't see school kids there very frequently, but I mean,
Yeah, that's-
the right time.
My personal experience, having walked that trail for decades, and that even residents that are newer to the area are just in dismay that it's in their backyard, literally.
Yes. I'm just gonna echo basically what Adam said is that in our maintenance of the walkway and the boardwalk area for trails and yips, I find it about 50-50.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll surprise you how many locals use that just on a regular basis. So I wouldn't look at just visitors. The target audience definitely is our local population.
Yeah. Adam.
And one other comment to consider in terms of signage. We talk about plant identification, but I think bird identification is at least as interesting, if not more so, to many people.
Okay.
I could envision like a checklist that especially kids pick up a checklist at the front and try and find how many birds they can find.
Okay. Keep going. This is great. I'm jotting all of these down. And Dan, just so you know too, I'm jotting all these down. Catherine.
I was gonna say, once
Thank
the
you.
library is built, there'll be more kids on it again. Because Whitecap always traipsed over there once or twice a week with all the kids right through the boardwalk to the library.
Yeah.
So that's just not happening now because
Good
the
point.
library.
Mhm.
They have to trips across the hall to move.
I'd like to suggest that any educational signs other than plant identification might be grouped at the beginnings of the pathways so that the wetlands has a fairly natural look. I don't want to have a sign as you walk.
So what about like a key at the beginning and then just numbers? So that they can connect the actual plant to the original document without having a big sign at every location.
That's definitely a good.
That would work.
Yeah.
Yeah, at
Read
the
'em.
beginning and then. numbers.
Yeah, Bobby.
I think it is kind of important to have the sign next to the plant that you're identifying, so there could be some little ones that just kind of stick into
Oh, yeah.
the ground.
That's
you
what
know?
Ron's saying.
Not
Kind of what-
invasive
Kind of what I mean,
ones.
only it doesn't have to have all the info, just.
Yeah, exactly.
So like
Like the name.
Like at Prospect Park, we have small signs at Prospect Park, plus we have the key at the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the concept I was suggesting was small name tags right at the plant. And we could actually have a number or something on that name tag if we needed to refer back to the, what we'll call it, an informational kiosk at the entry. And I think about that, you know, when you're leaving the pavilion and going back there, we've got that big tree with the kind of round platform. And that would be a nice spot to have a few educational signs with a lot of information there and then enter the wetlands. I'd like to see that's
With name tags dispersed in there.
the name, yeah, I think the only thing.
Yeah, no,
Excuse me, excuse me. We want to speak one at a time for the audio, so let's just reassure and honor that.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree with you. You have to have the name tag on the plan. It's not gonna help if you don't. But I don't think I would like to avoid any big historical sign or anything in the middle of the wetlands. I would like to have that, an introduction on each end and then the kind of untrampled wetlands experience.
Sherry.
On your big storyboards, you can put a QR code
Yes.
if you want to lead them to more information, detailed information about species and things like that.
Yes.
That's really easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Bob would echo that we've kind of been surprised at the use of the QR codes. They are in the trails, once they can be read, you tell how many times it's accessed. And I think that's kind of, that's what's important. Surprise how few times they're accessed, not many times.
Yeah.
That isn't accessed at all. It's a useful tool.
Is there not a concern about, connectivity? So if I'm walking through the wetlands with my phone and I'm on Verizon, QR code isn't gonna do me anything. So that's, I think, an issue before you go to
You can
QR.
download it and take it home for you.
Yeah, but then you're not getting the information.
I could promise that.
Sure, we'll take a look. Yeah. John.
I would think if you want to simplify
the terminology too, not make it too detailed, not overwhelm people with information.
So are you saying common name of plant, back to you, Ron, and not genus and species? Is
I
that
was thinking,
kind of,
That could be on the QR code. I mean, the QR code is like this big around. If anyone is a real plant addict or a real bird addict, then
you
they
get
will
more
know.
detailed
I
information.
mean, it's such a cheap thing to do.
I was kind of agreeing with what she was
Yeah.
saying. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think we need common names and something like a QR code if there's somebody interested, but most folks they just want the common name. We don't have that many
Yeah.
plant nerds wandering around.
One point to keep in mind, based on what Dan just said about putting like actually a sign at each end of the wetlands, there's really, I think, at least 5 entrances into that park.
Mhm.
So don't forget that.
Yeah, but I don't think we need the same level of signage on all entryways. I think we have like a
True.
couple of main entries and then a couple of like, oh, look, this trail goes this way. Kind of thing. So-
Okay.
Mhm.
And I know at least that one seating area seems like a very natural one to do it. I don't know what we would do, like say at the library end, but we'd wait until the library got built probably.
Hmm.
the other George, go
I
ahead.
just want to say that the mayor mentioned 2 sources for identification help. That's the Mid-Coast Watershed Project
Mhm.
and the Lincoln County Soil and Water Conservation District. They're
Mhm.
both.
Yeah, I have those here and they seem to have a lot of great information. Yeah, these guys. Yeah, so and that's another concept is that if we need to hire a consultant to help us identify what's there, species and all of that, we have the liberty to do that.
I wonder if Mayor Birdie would, that.
Say,
He can do a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's done a lot of it, I think, already.
Yeah.
then you get Jim for the birds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think-
Have you seen James for the?
Mayor Birdie on the Bird City, I mean, that's kind of David Bench building a bench. I mean, it's working. Okay, what other ideas, if any? Otherwise, I'm gonna ask our commissioners if we have a group that wants to be a subcommittee and start taking action steps. As far as number of people that, couple of people?
I'll put myself out there. Not sure how often we'll meet or anything for that, but we'll have to.
Do you, with your timeline, have the ability to, like, given the goal of trying to finish this early summer? That's
Well, that's why I kind of went out.
Yeah, because, yeah, I know we all have a lot going on in our lives,
Is it
so
possible to recruit 1 or 2 people that aren't on the commission to work with that?
I think, yeah,
Why
yeah.
not? So we could find people in the community who already know something about it and list their assistance.
Yeah.
Bobby, is this a work group or is this a? subcommittee?
I love these questions.
Yeah,
I think it would technically be a work group, but so I would suggest that you have a group, a subcommittee, a work group that meets together and then when somebody would be responsible to report to me on that. I don't have to work with you on it, but you can report to me on it. Yeah. And we would add it to that list.
Bob,
Just sitting here listening, it'll be done by early summer sounds highly.
yeah. Yeah, it's an ambitious goal.
Early summer,
Good to have both
6 weeks from now.
Well, early summer to me, it takes us to like mid-July or early July, mid-July. So that's 2 months from now.
Early August would be midsummer, just saying.
So, yeah, I could say a month. I'm thinking by July. So, well, it's just, I'm just gonna put it out there that this group has historically wanted action items and wanting to be busy out on the trails and in the parks and doing things and not talking as much and having administrative stuff. I've heard that a lot. And here's an opportunity to get out there in the field, literally, and get yourself working. So I would like to volunteer to be on the subcommittee. I don't want to be the only person, but I would be,
Dan already volunteered.
I did.
you're all in?
Well, I'm all in on the basis that nobody else is in, so.
I can do it.
It's gone of third.
Yeah.
There you go.
Adam,
Well, I was gonna say I could do it too, and I have some historical knowledge there as well in
Ooh.
terms of other animals that have been cited there.
Okay.
Muskrats.
muskrats, yes.
River otter
Yep.
twice.
Mhm.
All right, so we have a subcommittee for the Wetlands Boardwalk Signage Project of Adam, Meg, John, and Dan Wright.
Yes. Just make
One or the other.
Without portfolio.
Because we can't have four, so it's.
Oh,
Oh. Well, if I'm too many, I'll back out.
Well, I'll do,
John?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay, John, Adam, and Meg.
Okay, thank you.
It's, of course, up there in the-
Hearing anything from Dan, he's floating out there in Spanish.
Well, I'll follow up when we get back from our trip in a few weeks with an email for the three of us and how we want to proceed. And
Okay.
okay. Okay. Next is considering the proposed replacement of the Yahats noxious weed policy. So again, we have a city council goal in revising an outdated noxious weed policy, and we've been tasked to be a partner in that, one of the partners, as there is trust in our commission for our skills and good work. So as I understand it, the goal is to review and provide our advice as a commission on specifically which plants should be considered invasive in this policy and the best control methods for them. So there's going to be other groups involved to kind of set the scope of this clear. The Planning Commission will be helping with compliance issues and enforcement issues. So the entire ordinance is not just on our commission. We're asked specifically for the plants that we should consider to be invasive.
So I have a question. It looks like we have an A to Z list of noxious weeds. So what do you, I'm not clear what you mean by deciding what is a noxious weed. Looks like somebody's already designed in detail what those are. So I'm not sure that that's what we need to do. I have A through Z of listed noxious weeds.
Dan, did you have a comment?
I was gonna somewhat agree with Ron that the easiest part of this is to, easiest part of this is to identify the noxious weeds. What I see, the real difficulty here is enforcement. You know?
Right, right.
Because some of it's, I think there was one section there, I was talking about fire hazard. And, but there wasn't a whole lot of detail of like, well, what time of year, how tall is the vegetation or where you would get to where someone would say, you are definitely in violation and we're definitely going to do something about it. To me, that's the hardest part of all this.
Dan, Sterling?
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I think in addition to those, the specific vegetation, which would probably take a little bit of research, probably not a lot, because this seems to be a list that was compiled by experts. I think that we might be able to look at this policy just to kind of see if we want to make any major changes or if it roughly is pretty good, with the exception of the area that actually talks about enforcement, which we're not going to get involved in. So if this sounds okay, we could look at basically A through I, and I think we would just sort of avoid either all of G or the part of G, number 4, that talks about abatement by the city. So does that, I'm thinking that's we might ask Craig, he's right there, if that would be something he'd want us to do. I kind of was under the impression that was what we were partly to do just to deal with the non-enforcement issues and see if this looked like a decent document to send off.
Dan, I'm sorry, but I'm totally lost on your A through I and G.
Sorry, I am on Craig Birdie's, and I
On-
apologize. There are two. Yeah, the other one, my editorial opinion is that it is so, I don't know, archaically written or something as to be really difficult to really read, understand. I think Mayor Birdie's version is eminently readable, understandable. And so that's why I was kind of focusing on Craig's draft. And anyways, it was letter G, number 4, Ron.
That's a G.
This one.
This has A
It's A
through,
through, yeah.
A through Z. Oh, G number 4, okay.
There you go.
All right, thanks, Meg.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dan, I kind of cut you off.
No, everything's exactly right now. So Meg, does that sound like where we want to go? Because I know we got some different instruction a couple of times, but I still think within that instruction, it might be fine to look at the provisions written and, everyone, they would have read them just to see were there any objections. And I think we just avoid the thing about, G4, which is the main deal on enforcement.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And, yeah. Adam, did you have a question or comment there?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've had some form of this policy in place for decades or a
Yeah.
couple of decades. And other than one or two occasional vacant lots that have been handled by the city, effectively, we don't enforce it at all, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you can walk around and find English ivy growing on
Yeah.
numerous homes, as an example, and we don't do anything about it, and it's been on here forever. I guess I'm concerned that we're just refining a policy that is going to be difficult or impossible to enforce anyway. No one's going to go around knocking on the door saying you have to cut down your English ivy, I don't think, are they?
Well, we do have our code compliance officer.
Right.
Which we haven't had in the past, and we don't need that.
We've had one on and off.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, not recently.
Okay.
So that is something that they will be doing in their role as they, it's this last year that was their first year on, and so they're gonna continue developing in their role more time to code compliance.
How would you handle a situation where somebody was physically unable to get it? I mean, there's a lot of people that maybe can't physically go out and deal with that. How would you handle a situation like that?
We would be giving them the notice that they were out of compliance, and then they could contact us and we could talk through some other options, maybe give them names of companies that can help them out.
Okay.
Yeah, the letter that we have sent in the past has a list of people that have business licenses in the city that do.
Okay, so
Let's get rid of this.
Yeah, if you own the property, you're liable to keep it in
Correct.
compliance, whether you can do the work yourself or not.
right.
Dan,
I do see a lot of gray area in this document that I'm not sure how to fix. For example, in just G, the first sentence in G says, no person shall allow the uncontrolled growth and accumulation of yada, yada. And what is uncontrolled growth and accumulation? I feel like we need to have some specifics if you're going to try to have something that's enforceable. Growth over 2 feet or growth over 3 feet or something,
yeah.
And I'm not sure what to say. I just know that if I was the code enforcer, I'd be going, I'm not sure what you want me to tell them.
Well, and I think, as I understand it, that's part of what we're being asked is to refine and make edits such as that. Dan?
I can't remember where I read it, and I don't know if Bobby or Neil or the mayor might know, but I do believe that kind of information is somewhere where it actually talks about what our codes are with respect to heights and things. I could be wrong about that, but I thought I had seen something at one point. It could have been some other city. Does anyone of expertise know if we already have that kind of a specification on what uncontrolled means anywhere?
Adam?
I know we have something about like at intersections, at the end of your driveway, for instance, it can't exceed, I don't know what the numbers are, 6 feet, 4 feet, whatever. You can't block the view line if you're backing out of a driveway. It has to be
Okay.
clear. So if your neighbor has a hedge that goes to the end, they have to trim it back. I've
That
noticed restrictions about that. That might be what you're referring to.
Well, it could be. I just know I've seen it at some point, but what I think we should do here, unless it exists somewhere that we could refer to it right here with a link or something, I think in G, to speak to Dan's point, we ought to do something like maybe just have a comment if we're going to send this off to the city council saying we're not comfortable with that kind of language unless the city council, or planning commission rather, develops new specifications about plant height, things like that, because that would be more into their purview, I would think. So I think we can still kind of go through without us rewriting it, and we can say, we recommend that you think about this before you approve it, and then they may send it back to us. They probably would send that part to planning, because it really is more their deal than ours.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to save us trouble. I don't think we
Yeah.
should rewrite that, you know.
Lauren?
I'm a member of the planning commission, and we routinely look at the updating of definitions. And so if it's a matter of clarifying by changing the term of the definitions and what's said in definitions, fairly easy to do. It does require city council final approval, like any other ordinance change.
So if we were to do something like what Dan and Dan were suggesting, put in a note that, you know, we believe that this needs clarification. We don't have to rewrite it. We simply tell you guys, and then that's part of what you would do, is come up with language that matched. If you
I would
agree.
say that we would look at any input and evaluate that input. So everything is helpful because you get a wider idea of what you're really looking at. But yes, we can come up with some wording changes.
George?
Meg, can we please identify what our task is? You introduced this
Yeah.
as we're creating the index of
Yeah.
plants and how they're gonna be dealt with. Dan is introducing the idea that we're pouring over this thing.
Thank
If
you.
we're gonna pour over this guideline, I've got tons of comments,
Yeah.
including, is it even legal? So.
Yeah. Thank you.
We
Well,
have to decide that because we have a lawyer.
yeah,
So we can write the thing and then they can decide if it's legal.
yeah, the
Okay,
legal
that-
part will be covered
But I'd
at
like to
the
know what our
end.
task is.
Yeah.
Can we just narrow it or widen it, whatever it's gonna be, let's focus on what.
Yeah,
our role
it is unclear to me as well, so I appreciate your, comment, and question. I mean, one way to go at it is to look at this revised thing and just make suggestions, as Lauren was saying. I think if we even did some of that, that would be beneficial to the goal of the document as opposed to the individual plants. I think that might be getting in the weeds perhaps, and I know I initiated it with that. That was my understanding of what we were being asked to do by a prior email from, so that's where I'd like to go. Dan Sterling, that's where you'd like to go at this point. We've got maybe 10 minutes more today for this item. So again, we don't have to finish it, but I think your comment is, yes, we need direction. We didn't know what we're doing.
Yeah, either we need to tear it all the way apart, or we need to just give them some guidelines on it and.
So, yeah, so with this noxious weeds in Yahat's municipal revision, that's the document I'm looking at. Is everybody looking at that?
Birdie V1, yeah.
30 V1, okay, so we have this section 5.08.110, noxious and invasive vegetation. So we've all taken a look. If we scan down, is there anything other than adding specifics for clarification that we don't like? Can we live with this? Is this good? Is this?
I'm with George. I have a lot of issues with the document as a whole.
Okay,
And I don't know that we want to get into all of them, but if we're gonna approve the document, I think we have to.
okay,
If. I remember Craig asking us specifically if the list of plants should be removed from the body and included as an index. And I think
Right.
that's a really good idea. That index
Yeah, and we,
populated, added. to-
Updated, right?
and we have already done that in the revision. In
Okay.
Bertie's revision, it was in it and we have already removed it
Okay.
and made its own addendum
And
for,
that's
Yeah, C6.
Okay,
Wait,
great.
say that again?
C6
Six.
has a link, not on the paper copy, obviously, but it takes you to the A to Z list you were talking about earlier.
I
yes.
only go to C5.
That is.
Your. What?
Here you go, right here.
Same.
Noxious weeds and invasive plants.
Yeah, it's in
So
bold.
that was added. They took this out. and
Okay,
added that.
great.
Number 6 is bolded. You see that?
It's not on this copy that you told me to look at.
Ah, okay, well,
It's, I understand, because they
But-
took out the list and put number 6.
Right.
Yeah.
so yeah, that George has been
Okay, great.
done already.
My other comment about it, without getting too much into, kind of tearing apart each line. It seems to me we have different categories of things, like, overgrown vegetation that's blocking visual, creating a traffic hazard. It's not a noxious weed. So we have different categories of things going on here. Some things would be categorized as public safety concerns. Other things are noxious weed concerns. Other things are maybe a nuisance, or maybe traffic hazard is a nuisance. I'm not really sure, but I think some separation of these things seems in order to me, because I guess a tree growing and blocking visual clearance for traffic could be considered invasive, but I don't think that's what people usually think of.
Yeah,
So-
Lauren.
So there's,
Yeah, I'm sorry, George. were you-
There are sections of the other parts of the ordinance that cover what's called clear vision area.
Right.
And those are fairly explicit. They don't necessarily call out what the plant is, but just the guidelines as far as heights, visibility, that kind of thing.
so does that even need to be in this then?
Probably not. would be my
That's what I was gonna say.
judgment.
It's already addressed.
This is-
So I guess what I'm hearing, George, your question or your comment is that if we're being asked to do a noxious weed ordinance, then we should be narrowing it down, so we're only doing noxious. Is that in fact what you're saying? And if we do nuisance or safety, that would be a separate document because it's not a noxious weed.
Yeah, I'm not really sure that I've got a recommendation, just pointing out that some of the stuff didn't really seem to fit.
Yeah.
A fire hazard, for example, could be all native
Absolutely.
and not invasive or noxious at
Yes,
all.
Salal could be a fire hazard.
So I think there's certain things that need to kind of be defined first, and then we go from there. I think that the easiest part is the listing of plants, because so many organizations have already
Yeah.
done it for us.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
the easiest part. I know that, to me, I've made my position very clear to the mayor and the city manager about, I seriously doubt this is legal to charge people for removing weeds from their property. So I'm kind of skeptical of the whole thing. I made the example of, if there's a code that says you have to have a fence around a swimming pool, and the city says, hey, you gotta build a fence around that swimming pool, and they don't do it, and the city comes in and builds a fence around their swimming pool and then bills them for it. I just don't see that as a legal option for the city, and I don't see how this is any different than
Adam?
other code enforcement.
Yeah, kind of leveraging on where you're going with this a little bit, George. I also think, like, in my mind, there's a distinction between noxious and invasive, and then native and versus non-native. Poison oak is noxious, but it's native. I mean, and it's actually not on the A to Z list, incidentally, which I assume means that if it's growing on your yard, we're fine with it, which maybe is fine because it's native, it should be. So it's more that I think we should be focusing on non-native invasive vegetation. And maybe the word noxious to me I mean, poison oak being the perfect example,
Mhm.
we should just ignore it, because if it's noxious but it's native, we probably want to allow it.
Nettles,
Yep.
perfect example.
But
Yeah.
nettles, another, yes, thank you, good one.
Dan.
We've talked about the difficulties of enforcement and how hard it is to go and tell a private landowner that they have to pay to have something eradicated off their property because we don't like it. And I know it's a stretch, but is there any concept of putting together a voluntary program to help landowners and actually, identify the weeds and offer them help? I don't know whether it would be a city-funded crew or whether it would be a YIPS crew or who, but that to me would be about the only way you can hope to control this and make progress on it and not cause just terrible hard feelings all around town, is if you, and that also ties into John's question about suppose you have an elderly frail person who's not keeping their yard up because of health issues. Is there any way we could make a program, and I know this is kind of long-term planning, that sets up something to actually educate the landowners and offer them some kind of help?
I think that's such a stretch, especially in a town full of volunteers. And
Well, yeah,
I
but
think it's the compromise of a carrot and stick approach.
I agree with that. I just, from what I can see, we have so many volunteers working in so many different places. I'm just not sure we're gonna be able to pull up another, volunteer group for the specific one, unless it's something, like I said, that YIPS wants to take on. But I do agree with, the carrot is better than the stick. And the way to actually get people, I mean, you'll see property with English ivy all over it. It would be nice if we could say, well, this month we're gonna tackle this property and we're gonna get that English ivy off there. But I don't think we can tell people, you gotta pay a contractor, a few $1,000s to clean your property.
I don't agree with that at all. We live in a community and we have rules about what you can build on your property, of how much of your property you can use, how much of it the city owns. And when you buy property here, you are acknowledging that you're gonna live within the rules of the community. So if the city council has a rule about plants and you own property here, then you're bound by that as much as you are by all the others. So, if you don't like it, sell your property or comply.
Adam?
That's my opinion.
I like the sentiment that where you're going, Dan, I just, knowing how when we remove ivy from like the wetlands here, and we're doing it for months and months, knowing the scope of the work that it entails, I just don't see it as viable tackling all the properties around town. I like it.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of went, I don't know how we're gonna do it sort of thing. And obviously it would kill us if we tried to do all of it at once.
Right.
But like I said, when I compare the two enforcement methods and when I think of we have people that come into town, Ron, and buy property. They don't know any plant from any plants at all, In fact, most of their plants come from Lowe's or Home Depot. And when you go to those people and go, by the way, that nice place you bought, we're gonna do a enforcement and we want you to tear out those 6 butterfly bushes because they're invasive, you aren't gonna do anything but tick people off. But like I said, if we had some kind of, and I feel like, we got a lot of volunteers here and I know everybody's got their hands full, but I still think that that's something to look to see if there is some way we could do that, because I think that's make everybody happy kind of thing.
I'd just like to speak to what Adam just said, ivy removal. So what you just said suggests that this is an ongoing enforcement action for the property owner. The city will come in and inspect the next year and say, ivy's still here.
Yeah.
And it's just, I see it as onerous as it gets. And I understand what you're saying, Ron, but there are lots of homes in Yachats in every city in the United States that violate code, and it was because it was built before the code. And they get to live with that, period, end of story. And I just, I don't know if we're even supposed to be talking about this, so.
I know, I questioned that from the very
I
beginning.
think if our job is to fill out the index, let's just,
Let's start
It's
there.
done.
let's just
Yeah.
refer to the experts and make the list.
We can start there
Oh.
and possibly end there. we're being asked for our input.
Lauren,
And so,
this is a
Man,
difficult issue.
Oh.
I don't, suggest that this is easy. And I know enforcement issues are probably the most sensitive thing over at the planning commission.
It would be extremely difficult versus what the people who are responsible for getting it changed would mandate. That's a big issue.
it
Yeah.
is.
Does not become subjective.
This is where it shifts from nuisance to public safety. If it's killing trees, that's a fire hazard or perhaps a destruction to a neighboring property. That seems to me like a viable place for enforcement. Whereas you've got ivy on your property, that seems like a nuisance, but it may be a community standard and a community value, but we don't get to impress all of our values on all of its property owners.
Right.
Adam?
One comment and one thing I jotted down when I was reviewing the document, that just a thought that occurred to me. So there's a quote, one man's weed is another person's wildflower. And that speaks to part of the problem we're dealing with.
Sure.
And I'll get back to the invasives, and I think we could maybe focus, because yeah, some people are going to want a butterfly bush, and I don't know that I want to ban them outright in the town. But maybe we can focus on a buffer on the properties so that if they have their butterfly bush, it's far enough away that it's not going to spread into the public space, into their neighbor's yard. So a 25-foot buffer or something like that, where you can't have ivy, butterfly bush, holly, whatever else. Is one thought, and it's probably easier to enforce than going to someone's backyard to see if they're hiding some ivy in the back.
I will
Bobby.
say that there's been a lot of comment on the enforcement of it, how to enforce it. I would say that every instance that we've had to approach a property owner with any of these type of situations is when it becomes a public safety hazard or like a nuisance to the neighborhood, a worry of concern that it's gonna take over the next property. A neighboring property is when it will be brought to our attention. We're not driving around and looking over people's fences and
And discouraged or, so we're making that clear. What's just a safety or, public health or versus a nuisance? So an idea there for the categorization.
It strikes me that a noxious weed ordinance is just not enforceable in any way, shape, or form in the present situation. And I would say that we should just my suggestion would be that we, focus on an ordinance that addresses fire safety and line of sight and those sort of things, whether the plant's invasive or not. And then I think the only way to resolve the rest of it is somehow through some sort of volunteer community education program where perhaps you do have something in place to help landowners actually do the work, like yips coming in for a day. But I don't see how we could make invasive weeds any kind of ordinance at this point in time.
I will say that I don't believe we can send city volunteers that are volunteers through the city group on private property.
Okay, well, that's the legal thing.
For our insurance.
So I'm thinking about an old saying in the realm of ethics. Your right to swing your arms wildly ends at the end of my nose. And that speaks to what you were saying, that a complaint-driven policy seems to make sense in that, hey, this neighbor's doing something that's affecting my property. It seems like the perfect situation for enforcement. But the fact that my ivy on my property is contained on my slope and is not going anywhere, seems like a tough thing to enforce. And I do have one question for you, Lauren. Part G here says, no owner or person in charge of property shall allow the uncontrolled growth and accumulation of dead or dormant weeds, brush, high grass, Scotch broom, gorse, Himalayan blackberry, or pampas grass to become a fire hazard. This section shall not apply to any of the following. And number 2 says any natural area on publicly owned land and yachts. We are exempting ourselves? And is that the hypocrisy clause?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to look into the history of this, the preparation.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
All right.
Well, I think we've got a full sheet of points, and we're going to continue on with this topic into the future. So,
Not an easy one.
not an easy one, no, lots of thought.
Dan's comment about, I can't understand why we would have an ordinance for this. Because we've had one already for 30 years. We're just
Yeah, but-
revising an ordinance that's already in place. So we're not like creating something new.
No, but the fact that the law exists has nothing to do with whether it's workable or
I
enforceable.
totally agree.
You know, I grew up in Virginia, it was illegal to cohabitate. I can't tell you how many people were breaking the law in Virginia, even though the law was on the books. And there would have been hell to pay if people started knocking on doors and going, are you guys actually married? Because I know you're shacking up. So like I said, I don't see that, just going back, George brought up the ivy, okay? I don't see where, it's easy if there's a fire hazard or a line of sight thing, but if you've got a yard here and your neighbor's ivy is crossing the property line, I don't see how you can call, well, that's what I have a neighbor with ivy. I go right up to the line and I rip ivy out. Next year, I'll be ripping ivy out. That's the only solution to my shared boundary with my neighbor, you know?
Dan Sterling. Wow.
Dan had his hand up.
Dan?
Okay, I was gonna say to an earlier comment that there is a policy, but it was passed on to you guys. All of us had it in our packet, that first one. I just read it pretty carefully when I first read it, and I thought there were some parts that were just so in need of revision. So I think it would be a good thing if we're gonna have a policy, and if they're gonna ask for our advice, I think we should go ahead and do it, because it's only going to be better than the current policy. I mean, almost nothing could be worse. It's not. And there's so many philosophical things that, of course, are not dealt with because it's an old way of looking at things. So I think it'd be interesting to kind of get Craig's input as well to our input and see if he wants us to continue this conversation, and maybe we just develop, like everyone has sort of said, a list of like guidelines that our Parks and Commons Commission, since we were asked, believe would be a good, kind of parameter for what that policy might be. And that would be an improvement of what we have now.
I have to say, we do need this as a tool for the city to have when it does become a public safety problem. We have to have something that we can go back to that says, that you're endangering your neighbor's property, or this is out of control, it's become a fire hazard, this, nobody can see you, you're breaking the code here by this line of sight when you're trying to pull out to the highway. We definitely need it as a code, and the more that it could be revised and clear for all of us would be really helpful. So, and the more you can do on it would be very helpful.
So are we putting this
Okay.
away now till the?
Yeah, we need to move on to our last agenda item.
Can I make one suggestion? Similar to what we did a couple months ago with our Parks and Commons guidelines, or should we each kind of think of the parameters we'd like to see in a noxious or invasive weed policy and use that as a discussion point the next time we talk about it?
Yeah,
Let's do that.
thank you, Adam.
Homework.
Okay. Well, at our last agenda item for today is our continuation of our commission and who we are and what we do. So without further ado, we have our matrix. We had agreement on a lot and disagreement on some. So Dan Sterling, do you have a preference for how we want to continue this and hopefully finish it? Either this meeting or next meeting?
Well, I do, and I think that we were just doing essentially what I would suggest last time. And we got to a point of saying, okay, I'm looking at the comparison document. I forget what I called it. It's the
Guidelines,
cross-reference.
comments, matrix.
No, the cross-reference one, which is
Oh, right.
which has
This one.
yeah, basically it's an all-in-one. So what we were doing last time, we started on the left side, which is the guidelines draft, and we were going one line by one line just to see, to kind of basically test the quality of it. Did we have any, red lights, yellow lights, or green lights on it? And we did it with one of them, which is the very first one. There was one word change. And then we voted and we said, we're there. We had 5 thumbs up. So 5 on that day. So we would start, if we're going to continue doing that, which I think is efficient, go to the second one down, which is where it says receive regular updates and provide feedback. And just go one down the other until we're done. And that might go quickly. It might not, but it could go very quickly.
Could I suggest another approach?
Please.
Could we start with Mayor Birdie's and the city manager's version and read each line and decide whether it fits or does not fit in the guidelines and how it may be edited or not edited?
Yeah. That was kind of back to the beginning. I think that's a great place to go. Dan Sterling, you good with that?
I just want to finish this draft. So
Yeah.
Dan, if I could just add, and there may be things on the matrix that we want to fit into it, but we should maybe start with a document that is well organized, thorough, and maybe just need a little bit of.
Yeah. I hear you.
If I can clarify real fast, this document, the matrix, the cross-reference document, it literally is exactly what you were saying, Joe. It is line by line by line. They're just all in little boxes so that it's little bite-sized pieces.
Okay, I don't think I'm looking at the right one.
I don't think
I don't either, Dan. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Oh, okay.
They're named,
By side.
they're named differently.
George,
So
that's the
one of
one.
them, it's called,
This is what it's called.
it's
Yeah.
3A. If you have your computer, it's 3A. The cross-reference of PCC comments and guidelines draft doc.
So that calls.
It's Dan, it's the one that has city ordinance 12-1806 on the left.
No.
That's the only one that has 2 columns.
Yeah.
So when if you're not on Kimmy's page, but if you actually go onto the agenda electronically, you'll see everything is linked. And under 3A, on
There's
our
no
actual
numbers on it
agenda,
at
that's
all.
what I'm talking about clicking on.
Oh, here we go, at the beginning, go to the top agenda.
The actual
But you
agenda.
can't,
Yeah, those links are
Why, but
always
the
tried and tested.
agenda is currently not launching.
Yeah.
For me.
yeah, it's not,
Is that right?
User's mine,
For some reason.
and it was open just 5 minutes ago.
Dan, is that also listed in the documents, in the meeting
Well-
materials?
I don't think it is. That's why I've been
I
looking
don't
for it.
know. I honestly don't
Just
know.
open now, George. Try
Was it
opening
a
the
link to
agenda.
the agenda? Was it a link on the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
3A,
but I can't.
cross-reference,
But I
okay?
can't open.
But that's not opening.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna send it to everybody by email. You have your emails on?
I don't.
No.
Not everyone does.
How about you send it to my email
All right,
and then I can get it up there.
all right. Give me a minute. I have to find it here.
I was too.
Maybe it's on the other list, but it has a different name.
It opened from the agenda for me.
Never for me too.
From which
But,
agenda?
But the problem right now is when
There's two
we're,
different agendas.
when we're linking, the agenda link isn't opening
Mm.
right now is what's going on.
So as a bookkeeping for you guys, if we're gonna have documents that are linked from the agenda but not in the packet, that doesn't really work well.
It should have printed.
Okay.
Because it's,
Yeah.
all I do is hit one
One button,
button,
then it-
because it's the entire packet.
Okay.
If for whatever reason it stopped working, does somebody have a hard copy here?
Nope.
I didn't bring it, no.
Dan, send it to me and I'll print them out. I have a printer right here.
Hey, Kimmy,
Yes.
how do you get to the agenda center from the Yahats homepage?
Go down to agenda and. What was it there?
Agenda is under departments or?
Oh, no, there's a tab. When you're on the front page of the city's website, just go to the bottom and to the left side, you'll see. And see, mine is not opening up either. Uh-oh.
Well, are we able to all look back at the document that was put forth by
Okay.
Bobby and Mayor Birdie? Can we all get to that? You're gonna print them out?
The City of Yahat's Parks and Commons Commission Guidelines Draft, is that what that is?
Yes.
I got it.
You all have that in the.
If we all have that, we can continue.
Is this the document that we're trying to reference right now?
Yes,
So is that what you?
that's what I just, but that's not the document that Dan Sterling was talking about, that Kimmy's trying to pull up.
Hey, if anyone has email there, oh, and Kimmy, I didn't email it to you. Hang on, I gotta go back and do that.
I got it.
This was the document we wanted. How's this different from the one you have up right now?
It's the same, just it's not what they're working on, so, okay.
Kim, you want me to send it to you still?
No, I have it. I'm gonna
Okay.
print it out so that they can see it.
If you want to put it on the screen,
Actually, that's, I have to send it to.
I won't be able to
These are
see
two
it.
separate computers.
okay.
Yes, hold that thought.
The agenda opens, but the links aren't active.
Most all of them are.
Bobby, while she's doing that, here's a wild thought. To save printouts. If we had some way we could project the given document we're working on at a given time, we wouldn't need 7 copies printed out.
That's why we're all bringing our laptops to.
But then we wouldn't need to bring our 7 laptops either. We just have one screen where we're all looking at.
The TV can.
Yeah.
You can project it if.
But I won't be able to read it.
Yeah.
Definitely. not.
Oh, if we could somehow project it on a bigger screen though, like that.
I can see blue squiggles and black and white squiggles.
Well, there's a nice, isn't that a screen that drops down? If we could project onto that?
Yeah.
Just a thought.
I get Adam a laptop, that's all.
Could I ask, we have a question for you about the noxious weed ordinance. Does that apply just to this city's lines or does that go out
City.
City limits.
So if you had property out upriver that was, in fire danger and had weeds, there's no.
No, it'd be
no
county.
county,
Yeah.
So it's a county ordinance?
Yeah.
And who would be identifying that for the county, if somebody found out on this property, this?
Yeah, a neighbor or neighbor could possibly call the county and
Apparently
make a
not.
report to the Shelley there.
Oh, that link, you're still trying to.
Cause that would be the most likely place to have, we get river, somebody 7 miles upriver,
Yeah.
has a fire and gets out of control.
I got a problem. Well, they're different.
They've been published complaints to the fire department.
Yeah, but it makes it's not the right one because of the draft.
I'm saying that's not the document they were trying to discover. We can work with
What
that.
is the document that they are trying to
This,
discover?
that just was emailed.
It was emailed.
It's not any of those, is it?
No, if you click on the agenda at the top, Amy.
Yeah, it's,
So you have the document, Meg?
Yeah, it's just been sent by Dan to everyone.
Oh, just now?
Thank you, Jan.
Welcome.
We opened,
If you can open your mail.
got it, the cross-reference one?
Guidelines draft document.
Okay, didn't want that.
It says cross-reference. Is that the one?
That's it. So that should make it super easy because it does, I mean, George had the genius idea and this agrees that George has the genius idea. It makes it exactly that.
Yep.
It's every line that they wrote and then we can just go through,
I guess this is the one.
give comment.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
It is the same as this. It's exactly word for word the same.
that's exactly right. It's just in a different format. So it's
Alrighty.
line by line. Okay, so number one, we have already completed, right?
Yes.
Rename the PCC. We had that discussion.
Wait, what are you looking at?
We're-
That's not the document, Meg.
On the left side, I don't know if it's small on your screen, Meg, but on the left side of the actual document, it should have, Craig and Bobby's, and on the right side, it has PC member comments, which was from the matrix.
I see.
So we're starting under advisory role.
That's it.
Yeah, look, to the, yeah.
The first one we did
Oh.
finish.
So we're looking at advisory role in blue at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. So the first one, we had already pretty much,
We did,
Had
we
our-
voted on it, we said we're good. We added a word, but that's it.
we added community to the community spaces.
Yep.
The
Yep.
second one, receive regular updates and provide feedback on work from the assigned staff, trails and yips leaders, and keeping Yachats beautiful to ensure maintenance and safety of trails, open spaces, and commons. Does anyone not agree that that should be part of our role as PCC?
I agree that it is, and I think we should add the word work groups.
That's what I was gonna say, because it could change over time. So instead of saying trails and yips and keeping the house beautiful, just, we could say something like assigned work groups. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Relevant.
I'm not sure if every work group is gonna be in our reports, that Bobby has. In fact, there may be some that aren't now.
Yeah, relevant.
Relevant work groups.
Relevant work
Time
groups.
staff and relevant work groups.
Okay? Anybody disagree with that change in word on the commission?
Nope.
Assigned staff and relevant work groups.
To ensure blah, blah, blah.
Now, and keeping Yachats beautiful would be a relevant work group too, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so basically that's all we need. Okay, good.
So are we keeping those specific work groups in or taking those? out?
No, aside.
Just saying,
Although, should we say such as?
I think we should just take them out because,
Okay.
this is a document that's gonna be around for 20 years. Who knows what, is gonna be there then. So.
Okay.
we
No,
can
I
take
like assigned staff and work groups. Boom.
assigned staff and relevant work
And
groups.
relevant.
relevant work groups.
Okay.
That's Dan's.
Oh, so cool.
Next,
We're good.
Next one, provide recommendations on the acquisition, development, use, operation, and disposition of parks, open spaces, and commons, facilities, rules, and regulations. That's a lot.
It is, and we have extra comments in there. Is it commons, facilities, rules and regulations, or is it common facilities, comma, rules, comma, and regulations?
I think we should take rules and regulations out.
Let's wordsmith that one, okay? So Ron, you're suggesting,
Yeah, use, operation and disposition of parks, open spaces and commons facilities. Period.
And do we want to leave it at open spaces or community spaces like we did before?
Yeah, I have no problem with either.
Yeah, I'd say community makes it better.
I agree. It's
I
more
agree.
consistent and it's specific.
You guys good with taking out rules and regulations?
Always.
Yeah, well, but it is, the active part of this is provide recommendations, blah, 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 for rules and regulations. It does seem like that's one of our roles.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm not sure that I see that.
We do it via rules and regulations.
It seems like the problem is that rules and regulations doesn't fit the rest of the sentence.
It doesn't, yes.
And
So maybe
but
make it
rules and
separate.
regulations is part of our purview.
Could you give me an example? Where are we doing this?
Getting rid of something.
Dispose, yeah.
Yeah.
Designing the rules?
Are we ever going to get rid of any?
I hope not, but I guess we could, and in which case we would give a recommendation not to.
Yeah, okay.
well, other than it might not read as smooth, is there any objection to it as is with the one change of community spaces instead of open spaces?
I would ask why disposition of parks? I mean, what function would we do that would come under that?
An eventuality, I guess.
Yeah, like, we don't want that park no more?
Yeah.
Yeah, some event relating to the, yeah.
Okay.
Again, I think part of the idea is to leave this clear and broad, if possible, if that can be reached for the future of the whole thing as well as now. Okay, well then if we're okay there, yeah, George, you had a
How about
thought?
we move rules and regulations to the next line?
That's what I was thinking, under,
It seems to fit there a little bit better, although this is the rental rates, but that's rules and regulations and rental rates go together
Mhm, it would.
nicely.
So how would you reword that then?
Rules and regulations.
You could do, provide feedback on program rules, regulations, and facility rental rates as needed.
Okay,
That covers it.
Program? What's program?
Which program?
Like eliminating pickleball, for example.
Oh. Exactly, pickleball. How much should we charge for pickleball? I want to be on that committee.
Meg, did you write down, Meg, where we landed on that?
so provide feedback on program,
Provide feedback, rules and regulations and facility rental rates.
Okay, well, I don't know that I think that we should be involved in setting rental rates and program and facility rental.
But Rosa wants to talk about that.
yeah, Rosa, you want to chime in there?
I'm fine with studying all of that. I think it's just to provide feedback. Like I can bring the information to you and you can let me know what you think about it and if there's anything that needs to be corrected or changed. Just to get other eyes.
Yeah, we're not giving the
Yeah,
dollar
that's good. That's the
amount.
opposite.
And Adam, you had an example and I'd
Yes,
love for
I
you
have
to
a
share that.
Great example that sticks in my mind and was before pretty much everyone else on the commission's time. That makes me want to have an input into facility rental. In the 2010 to 2015, 16, 17 timeline, there was a group called One of Us Productions that used to put on plays here in the multipurpose room. 3 plays a year or so, and they were really a lot of fun. The whole community came out. They were well done. Very popular. Anyway, there was some changes in City Hall and Parks and Commons Commission at the time. I'm not sure what happened, but they changed the rental rates and they made it exorbitant for them to basically do their rehearsals. And they complained and there was some back and forth and they just decided to hell with it and they disbanded. And it was a real shame and I don't want to see anything like that ever happen again. So if we have any way to keep that from happening, we should.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rosa.
Just wanted to add that I do keep in mind what you say, and when I am going to revise the policy for rates, I am gonna keep in mind the community and folks that do rent the space regularly. And, you know, a lot of them are nonprofits or don't have a lot of money, and but they provide a great service to our community.
Yes, they do. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I
So-
think we should have input is, I guess,
Okay.
my point.
Yeah, and I think the last two words of that line are also helpful for this as needed. So what I have then is provide feedback on commons, rules, regulations, programs, facility rental rates as needed.
I think one more add, maybe provide feedback and recommendations on blah, blah, blah. Because we may want to recommend rather than just responding.
I like it.
Sure. Anybody have a problem with adding recommendations?
Oh,
Okay.
okay, actually take
Provide
feedback
feedback.
down and put recommendations in.
Provide feedback and recommendations. And again, this is all as needed. So if we're asked for feedback, we'll give feedback. If we're asked for a recommendation, we'll give a
And if we
recommendation.
feel the need to put out a recommendation without being asked for it.
That's right, because we think it's needed.
Okay, moving along under program development. Recommend diverse recreational programs for all ages and abilities, including sports, arts, fitness, and senior programs. Do we need any changes to that line or are we good as it is?
I think it's good as is.
Good.
There's the old including but not limited to.
There is that. And I was thinking about that as I read it because we have just a few things, but
Yeah.
what about the groups that aren't listed? So anybody have a problem with including but not limited to?
Nope.
I'm not sure I agree with the entire sentence as a whole.
Okay,
You, Al, gonna say something too.
So what does that mean? We're supposed to go recruit people to,
Doesn't say recruit.
I know. I'm just, what does it mean to you then? Recommend diverse?
To me, it
recreation?
allows us to have feedback.
yeah, and give
Or It
ideas.
allows us to come up with an idea.
Right.
You know, like, why
Isn't
don't we
that-
get rid of the
isn't that
pickleball
addressed-
court and make it a tennis court?
Isn't that addressed in the one we just talked about? Provide feedback on program and facility rental?
It sort of does, yeah.
I think given in answer to Adam, what you're saying, it's their advisory role heading and then the program development heading.
Heading, right.
So if we wanted to combine them, we could, I suppose, or leave it under those different categories.
Something that comes to my mind in this sentence is, as a group, you could be, as you're our community connectors, maybe you know somebody who has previously been a chef, professional chef, and is here in town and could maybe have a weekly cooking night with their class night or something for people who are interested in signing up, and you could bring that recommendation to the commons coordinator or the city staff to start working that out as a community option that's happening in the city. So it's like, it's kind of like community connector role to me.
Okay,
I like that, but I just don't know that that belongs as part of our charter.
We're writing the charter.
I know, well, this sentence would go in the charter, right? Is that something that should be part of our charter? I don't know.
I think the way Bobby, I was kind of aligned with you on that. But after what she said, that it's just an opportunity for us to be, another opportunity for us to liaise with the community and possibly come up with new ideas for something that can be done.
Okay.
Bridge builder.
I have no reason not to put it in.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I would certainly do exactly what Bobby said. I just don't know that I want to be required to do it as part of a charter.
Adam, if you don't come with with a recommendation.
Yeah, you're gonna get it from there.
This gives them really outlandish
Yeah,
recommendation.
if you know it, then we're gonna take away one day of.
Okay. So we'll add but not limited to and leave it alone. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, very nice. So the next one is develop a citywide donation policy for city council approval.
What's that?
I think we did it.
Didn't we do that already? Gifts and
did that.
donations?
Oh,
Done.
That's the nation.
So
Okay,
we can
commi-
eliminate that.
Well, no.
Well, what?
I think we keep it because if it ever has to be done again, we would be the ones perhaps to do it. So it's only there as like, this is one of the many things that you might do. You don't have to do every one of them every year.
And we can be the mentors for future groups.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, community engagement. I think that we've left that again, conceptual so that we can take input from the community and we can bring forth ideas.
See a semicolon there with the 3 things below as being the gathering, the community input.
Yeah, 10 and 11 are kind of redundant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 10 and 11 can be put together.
Does anybody,
Merged with the recommend diverse recreational programs, because that's sort of community input as well.
So community engagements, it's its own section, then gather input, promote the use of parks and foster partnerships are like the 3 bullet points below.
oh, yeah, that
Dan
makes
forgot to
sense.
put it in blue on the document.
No,
That's
My
what-
apologies.
Yeah. community
It's so much
engagement
better
should
that
be
way.
a new category.
I see.
Thank you for clearing that up.
So then under community engagement, that's right. So those 3 points, are we
Yeah.
wanting change or leave them as is?
Get public input, promote the use of stuff and partnership. I'm fine with all 3.
What does promote entail?
Sec recommend.
To me, it's like a liaise, you know, to be out in the community and if you know about something, to go tell your friends that there's pickleball on Thursday afternoon.
Or to tell them the sunset parks?
that's gonna take over
Right.
pickleball
Make
court.
sure you do wild things.
Hawaii, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so we're good with all 3 left under community engagement.
We think so.
Okay, next is a budget and finance. So we have prepare and submit a proposed operational and capital project budget for consideration. Okay, well, we're just experts at that, right? And we are not afraid of that anymore. Is there anybody who disagrees with that? No, okay. The next one is monitor budget expenditures and report issues to the city
I
staff.
would like to take on a little bit bigger role on this. I think it's really important. It's something we've never done is maybe quarterly, I'll bring in a brief summary to our meeting in just 5 minutes and say, here's where we are on the budget. Instead of just having it kind of be random. That way, when we get to the end of the year, it's time to do the next budget. We have a pretty good idea of how it's gone all year long.
Bobby?
And quarterly is probably good for this group, just on the way that the money is spent throughout the year, but the public works and streets every single month of finance is part of their agenda.
Not happening.
Volunteering to do it for them.
We can,
These are our finance reports directly from the city's website, so it's just a really easy overview.
I think that's great, Ron, but
Yeah.
I think we don't want to put that in here. I think recommend, monitoring the budget expenditures encompasses that.
Absolutely. Okay, I wasn't recommending changing. it.
Okay.
Just adding it.
okay. Well, thank you. That's a great
That
addition.
would be nice.
Okay, environmental stewardship, protect and preserve the natural environment within parks and promote environmental educational programs.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just kind of what we're doing with the signs.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're doing.
Exactly. Okay. And then recommend sustainable practice in park operations and suggest improvements to the city's invasive weeds
Let's
ordinance.
strike that last clause.
Or put it somewhere else. Yeah.
Well, again, I think we've all come to the place of, providing improvements on the existing weed ordinance. It's going to be better than what is there now. So I think,
Well,
Needs to be in here then.
yeah, I mean, doesn't recommend sustainable practices in park operations kind of include that?
Because the invasive weeds thing is not just in parks, it's everything.
Yeah, well.
And
That's the rub, because they don't have boundaries, and so everyone is a neighbor to every city park, just about,
yeah, it
because
looks like
seeds
it's,
fly,
yeah. Cool. It looks like it's broad enough that we can all live with it. If I'm wrong, let me know, but go ahead, George.
I guess I'm focusing on the word improvements, it's vague. And it suggests the mire that we just went through. Whereas
Provide input.
like what really might be more appropriate is like recommending additions to the city's invasive weeds index. Perhaps.
Right, so only
updates
the
or-
index, not the entire ordinance.
Perhaps.
Yeah, that's not a bad.
Just.
Yeah, that's an idea. What if we also or instead of that, just said provide input, which
Input's
keeps
better.
it broad?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think like along with what Dan had said earlier, with one of the other topics is that this is meant to be 20 years out, so it might need to be reviewed. Not that you guys need to do it again next year, but it might need to be reviewed again, and each one will be the place for it.
Input.
Input.
Provide input.
Input,
Okay.
yeah.
and do we want to, since we're talking about the invasive weed ordinance here, do we want to also inject the potential tree ordinance, which seems to fit in the same line item? And I know we're supposed to tackle that this year. Whether we we may go down the same path as the invasive weed ordinance, throw our hands up, but it,
At least it's in there.
at least it's in there.
So your wording would be recommend sustainable practices in park operations and provide input to the city's invasive weed index and tree ordinance.
Not index, but ordinance, yeah.
Both are ordinances? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I would be okay with that. And it's broad enough to where I think I could live with that.
Mhm. Anybody have a,
I have a counter argument for that. I'm a little wondering if that tree ordinance, how that would fly, because I think we can do a tree ordinance for all the common areas for sure. The city owned, city adjacent, that makes sense. But this gets back to some of the points that Gio was making earlier about private property. And I'm not quite sure if the tree ordinance is, I don't think it's even as close to, what we can really get into doing. That seems really much more a planning issue to me as well, because that's completely about enforcement. And so I'm hesitant to add that word about tree ordinance, because I could imagine us not being able to really put one together, except for one that relates to parks and community areas.
Basically what he just said, we're parks and commons, so why would we be involved in a citywide tree ordinance?
Well, then we're parks and commons. Why would we be involved in a noxious weeds ordinance?
Well, just on parks and commons
No, it's
property,
not
Ron.
just on parks and commons property. It's the entire city and all the properties. We already went through all.
yeah.
But
It's a
Ron,
name change.
If we're doing noxious
Yeah.
weeds, if we're
And-
doing
and
noxious weed, then we could also do trees.
Yeah, and I agree, Dan. We may just debate tree ordinances for 3-4 months and say, forget it, it's not worth doing, and we may not address it, but I think we should put it here. So it's at least in our charter as opposed to Public Works or some other, it's our responsibility, not another commission.
But should we put it in here if an ordinance doesn't exist? Which
We're providing
That's what
input.
I'm concerned with.
I'm
to-
concerned about.
Yeah. If we leave it out, we can add it in fairly easily in future drafts, although we don't want to, count on that. It's a process, but I'm very leery of adding something that doesn't exist.
How about we put the word potential tree ordinance? Input to a potential tree ordinance.
Why is that beneficial, though?
Well, one, we've been tasked with it by the city council for this year as
we
one of
have-
our goals.
We've not been asked to do a tree ordinance.
It was in the city council goals that I reviewed with the group last week, or last month. Excuse me. It was in the city council goals
It
to,
was?
yeah.
I stand corrected.
For us?
Mhm.
For us.
Oh,
Got another
You guys
question.
and planning, so
Yeah.
to like work together.
Yes.
so what if we had,
Question here.
well, okay, I guess if we're doing, provide input to it, I can certainly live with that, because no matter what, even if we can't get one for the private areas, I think we probably could do one for the parks if that was even necessary. I don't know if it is, but I can live with it. If everyone wants to go there, I'm fine.
Also easements, city easements too.
Dan, did you have a final?
The two items don't seem to go together to me, but what is a sustainable practice? What's an example of sustainable practices in park operations that we might recommend? I mean, we're not talking about recycling, it's the part, what do we mean by that first part of that sentence?
Well, we might mean that.
Okay,
For events, might mean, the kind of pesticides that are used or not used, insecticides. all the
Okay.
stuff that usually follows.
And even what kind of plantings we may do in a park would
How
also
to-
apply.
How to protect plantings
okay.
while they grow, you know?
Got more.
Lighting, I guess, could be considered a sustainability practice.
So back to the tree ordinance, to be or not to be? I'm more
Understand
comfortable.
what George is saying, that since there isn't a tree ordinance, that it really doesn't make sense to indicate it in there. So, I mean, I'm okay with it, maybe putting the word potential in there as well, so that, but yeah, it seems it's.
Well, how about and possible future ordinances?
That is potential.
But not listed as tree, just and possible future ordinances. So whatever might come up, it's already
Relevant ordinance.
relevant.
I wrote that.
Well, what, okay, this is a little.
They're getting in the weeds for sure on this.
Noxious ones.
Well, I
too.
mean, we can, I think actually we want to wrap it up
Yeah,
with this
okay.
one, so,
We want to finish this number? Finish wording this one?
I do like the changing improvements to input,
okay.
and the input could be, I don't want to do that.
Yes, it could be. Provide input.
So, yeah, I'm trying to come up with some word that would mean that the ordinance is active or current. So if you said something like current
Existing?
tree ordinance,
That
and there isn't one,
Yeah, I
then
mean,
you're out, you.
And if we just say ordinances, that's a little too broad.
Relevant existing ordinances?
No, because it's not.
It's not existing.
Oh, but it
What
might be
about
But it would be if it ever did exist.
That we're asked to look at.
Let's put that as part of our homework for next month. Number 19 needs some tweaking.
All right, I agree with that.
You can work on it
Right.
on the beach.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Don't hold your breath.
We'll do that while we're snorkeling. Okay, very good.
There was a last minute addition to the agenda, the delineators.
Yeah, that was not really put on there as a discussion item. It came through from Lynn West just to give ideas on what the city is thinking about, but they're handling that. So any future input, certainly bring it to.
So, are they doing it without any more input from us?
They'll be getting our input before a decision is made.
Okay.
They'll be, yeah, a decision will not be made without coming back to us as I understand it. Am I wrong on that then?
So we came here last month and shared the two ideas. That was the very beginning of the conversation, the delineators and the
Blocks.
blocks.
Jersey-
And then
Jersey-
this, and then more ideas and things.
That's right.
Through the conversation we got together. And that was kind of like, these are the things that have been discussed and evolved since our last time that we've been here. So now it's in the Department of Public Works and council. Kansas.
That's right. I was thinking of the bathrooms that you said would be the
Yes.
plan. Yeah, so I apologize. So I want to make sure you're clear on where it
So
stands.
should we discuss it at all or no?
No,
It's out of our hands and
right.
we hope it's a good decision.
Well, and we'll still get it happening.
And there'll be time, it'll be on the city council agenda before.
Okay.
Yes.
It's.
Okay.
yeah.
I think there's gonna be,
Yeah.
they're gonna do something. This
So,
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, what's the funding?
But you're saying it's not coming here
It
for
will
a
come back
recommendation?
here.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
right.
before we
Right.
do this completely, I did have one thing for line 22. I just want to replace the word volunteer with work group, coordinate work group opportunities for parks, trails, and commons projects with the assigned city staff. That would be my last edit, I think, on this.
Could you repeat that, George?
Yeah.
We didn't make it 22, did we?
No.
No.
Next meeting anyway.
Yes.
Oh, George.
Hi, George.
All right, we'll call it good. Okay, any updates from the Civic Master Plan Advisor Group? George, you've given us,
Did that
you, Adam, anything?
I missed that one, so no,
Oh, right, and
I kind of did that.
done that already. And any other business from commissioners that you want to bring forth?
Aloha.
Aloha. All right, meeting adjourned.
Have a good time.
Everyone.
I second that.